BW Thinking Law Podcast, episode 6. Hey, we're moving. We're moving. We're moving. Oh man, hi B, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm sharp, man. How's your week?
It's been productive.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Those are the good ones.
Yeah, of course.
Those are the good ones.
Absolutely.
Where we see results. I'll start this one today with saying I think the VP and Minister of Finance listens to our podcast.
Carlos, thank you. You know, I was going through the budget speech.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait.
Hold on.
Well, what did Ministry of Justice say?
What did Ministry of
I was
Justice
like,
say?
wait a minute. Did this man listen to our podcast?
Like,
It's not even just the ministry. They think, the monetization with different
platforms, yeah. And how Botswana has all these creatives, have all this talent, and we're not sending it out to the world. We literally said this last week.
Yeah, no, I was blown away.
And then for me, it was just like, okay, mind blown, was when he talked about the commercial courts, the establishment of commercial courts, where he said something like, on average, a case will take about 660 days, for it to be resolved. I was like, this is what we're talking about. We literally said this. So yeah, no, I'm sure you were quite happy with the budget speech.
No, I was actually quite thrilled.
Yeah.
Like I said, for the longest time, I kept saying, Ministry of Justice,
Come on, yes,
do not throw us in any other, because the thing means we share a residue and it won't come off as a, set big amount of money. So I'm very glad that I saw the Ministry of Justice today.
You and other lawyers, because Ghana, if it means cases being resolved quickly, that means more cases to prosecute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, they seem to be talking about alternative dispute resolutions, right?
Yes.
We don't necessarily have to go to court. We can do arbitrations, we can do mediations, and things of that nature. So I'm actually quite happy that, as a sector, right? I'll put it as a sector. The administration of justice sector is actually getting the recognition, and it's being given the weight that should have always been there, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I see justice and correctional services.
And correctional
I
know.
didn't know.
Yeah.
I was there thinking to myself, hey, we have one of the ministry one. Yes. And when it was explained, it sort of made sense, because they then talk about issues of rehabilitation of prisoners and things like that. And the idea of what you call it, the sentences that then come from the court. So there has to be an interplay between the criminal justice system through the courts and through the prison services.
Yes.
And I suppose in the Attorney General, the DPP, maybe ombudsman, I'm not sure if somewhere now.
Okay, yeah, a whole 1.02 billion has been allocated to the Ministry of Justice. With a B.
Yes.
And he mentioned legal aid on. We spoke about legal aid on as well.
We talked about legal aid and how legal aid is actually overwhelmed.
With cases.
The number of cases that they have to deal with, right? And I like the emphasis on the subvention to legal aid. Because that way it means what are they able to take on, to have more resources in order to take on more lawyers and things like that. So it's looking up.
Okay.
It's not to my satisfaction,
but it's a start. It's a start. It helps that this is a government that talks about human rights, and you can't talk about human rights if people don't get proper legal representation. Number one, and for cases to be dealt with in a time that makes sense for everybody.
Exactly, because we go on a lot about justice delayed is justice denied.
100%.
Sometimes the nature of the way matters are, they're going to be delayed, because right now I think we're getting trial dates in 2026 and 2025 just started.
Yeah. It's crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
We spoke a bit about the budget speech last week when we had Rajesh here. So this week, yes, and tax. Rajesh is coming back, guys. He's going to come back because there's a lot here. You know, some of us, where our companies are starting to make a little bit of something. So we need to understand. So that what. I want to understand those things. I need to understand. Right. Today's topic. Very, very important. A lot of people are dealing with this landlord and tenant law. Let's start it right from the top. You know, landlord, tenant, because people are landlords out there and they don't know. People are tenants out there and they don't know. Yes.
So to explain it as simply as possible, a landlord is a person who lets out their immovable property specifically, right? Yes, there are leases when it comes to movable properties, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about immovable property. So I will lease out my immovable property to you to use for a specific thing, maybe for a certain period of time, and then you give me money at agreed intervals for a certain amount. Right? So it can be an issue, you'll pay me, and this money that you give me is called rent.
Yeah.
And you'll pay me this rent every 2 weeks, every month, every 3 months, or whatever intervals that Yes.
Okay.
So this agreement can actually be written or it can be oral or verbal. Right? So there's no law that says a lease agreement has to be written. Meaning that if you fulfill these conditions, I'm letting out an immovable piece of property to you for you to use and you pay me this rent, then there's an existence of that
agreement.
Lease agreement. Yes.
But as we always say, we recommend.
Yes, it is always recommended for it to be written because people then know what their rights and responsibilities are.
Now, there's instances where I always talk about this because I guess you've been living in somebody's property for quite a while, and there was a written agreement at the beginning, and then maybe it was like a yearly thing or 2-year thing. You kept on renewing, and after like 5-6 years, it's just like and then I'm like, my landlord is great. Everything is great. How do we look at that situation?
So effectively, you would have continued under the same terms, right?
Yes.
So I'll say, for example, if maybe in the written agreement on escalation, you say, well, every year there's an increase by 5% or whatever. Even after the expiry of the written lease, it sort of almost revives, and I say this in air quotes, right? Such that you're governed by the terms of that agreement, even though it no longer exists. Especially because you are carrying on as if the lease hasn't expired. Yes.
But just so there's no confusion, Hala, guys, let's just get the stuff written.
Be on top of your game.
Yes. So these written agreements, what needs to be in there and how complicated do they need to be? Do I need to see a lawyer to put it together for me? Or after I get it from the landlord, get a tenant, do I now need to go find a lawyer for them to break it down to me?
It depends. The lease can be as complicated or as easy as you want it to be.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And look, I will always recommend that you get a lawyer to look at whatever agreements you have.
Yeah.
And I say this because you sometimes find a situation where a written lease agreement will be for, let's say, 2 years, right? And inside that lease agreement, there's no termination clause. Right? The termination clause being if you want to get out of this agreement before the 2 years finishes, you give the other notice.
Yes.
Sometimes there's no termination clause, or sometimes it will say 3 months notice or 5 months notice. What that then means is if there's no termination clause, then you're stuck in that lease for that 2 years, right? Unless the landlord agrees for you to sublet it to someone else or to pay out the rest of
the remainder of the 2 years.
Yes. or if maybe it has I think a notice period here 3 months. You then pay out the landlord 3 months. You can around out. Things like that. But there's nothing that forces the landlord to actually accept this person that you want to sublet to you or to say,
So lack of termination is definitely a red flag there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to have a termination clause. It's not so much a red flag as I don't know, maybe it's an oversight.
Yes. Okay, what are some of the oversights that people need to look out for in lease agreements?
You see, the thing that is constantly fought over, Carlos, is security. Security deposit. Fought over security deposit.
Equal to the renter.
A lot of times, the lease agreement will say there'll be a security deposit there, then 50. Right? And then they will say to you, the security deposit will be refunded to you after you leave. It doesn't say, or a security deposit, it says right now. It doesn't say how long after you leave will you be given your security deposit. It doesn't even talk about instances where you forfeit the security deposit. Right? What I've seen landlords start to do though, if they started to say to tenants, well, you can't owe me rent and say there is a security to pay you. To pay yourself.
Yes.
And the thing is, from my understanding, security deposit leader or a high local thing, or pen, the high local pen you and stuff like that. Or not do it, say, or even in instances where Mopasi in the middle of the night as a then the landlord can keep the security deposit or cover that notice period, high load 1 month. Right? But what I've realized sometimes happens for the landlord will keep the security deposit such that when the tenant leaves, hey, kita udyala kweditan. Hey, after kweditan, kita udyala kweditan. Ema pili kitsenye tenant dogo mo ko udyala and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, or one area where I've seen a lot of issues in lease agreement. And then the other point is sometimes an issue. Like a tenant doesn't pay rent, a landlord key. Right? Without any notice, without any court order, without any due process.
Yeah. Let's go back to that one is very key. That one, we have a good 10 minutes of its own. Let's go back to this one, the security deposit. The end. You mentioned for maybe security deposit in some instances, if there's any damage to the house, we will use the money from the deposit to pay that, and then whatever is left over, we'll give it back to you. Now, what I want to understand is these terms. Do they need to be in the agreement? If it's a written agreement, do they need to be in the agreement? Because how do we know what is damage that I caused, and how do we know what's just general wear and tear? Because I imagine something like wear and tear, where repainting the wall because pen dates or hits is different from repainting the wall because nerapa mo kitchening rapa okare we have kids who are drawing with their crayons on the walls, that sort of thing. So these conditions, should they be in the agreement? This is the specific thing that we're going to use the deposit for. This is the specific damage that we're going to use it for.
Yes, these things should be in the lease agreement. But you find certain lease agreements will say you as the tenant are in charge of making sure the fixtures and fittings DCI. Right? So throughout the duration of the lease, it is your responsibility as the tenant to make sure you clean up and things like that.
Yes.
Yes, And that's what causes the problem, right? A lot of times you see security deposit, but exactly what it is that the security deposit would be paying for. And you're right, one can argue, ordinary wear and tear should not be something that I pay for.
As a tenant, yeah.
As a tenant. But there'll be landlords who say, yeah, I can have no son, so to try and avoid those things, it's important to actually set out in the lease agreement for what is it that the tenant is responsible for in relation to wear and tear and damage, and what is it that the landlord is responsible for.
Okay, so I think we skipped something here. Yeah, Harubuaka, the agreements, the different agreements, whether there's a fixed term one and there's an indefinite one.
Yes.
Please explain to us there what the difference is.
So you find instances where it will say, there's a lease agreement, X number of years, right? And if it says maybe let's say 10 years, that is a fixed term because it has an exact number of years that it's supposed to be running for. But then you find lease agreements where it's just Bonolo and Carlos enter into a lease agreement and that's it. There's nothing that will say the duration lease agreement yet. Right? So you find situations say the lease agreement is just there, it exists, and it just goes on forever. Yes.
Okay. Conditions notice. The conditions of notice or conditions notice?
So one of the conditions should be the termination clause.
Yes.
Being the notice, either party can get the other to say,
okay, let's talk residential. What makes sense for me? I'm just a guy. I just started working. I moved out of home and I'm looking for this apartment and move into this apartment. I open the contract and there's a termination clause there. What should make sense to me?
I think generally the thing that makes sense is 1 month, right? And I say 1 month because it is easier for you to say, you know what,
yeah.
Yes, but that is from the perspective of the tenant. But maybe the landlord, only believe like the property market and the rentals and stuff, might say, well, hey, I need more time than a month for me to be able to find a new tenant. So 1 month the hand better get. So I think it depends on which party this is coming from. I can landlord it.
Okay. Now ke batla go bua ka kgang e o tlhagitseng mo gone ya di-scam key eo. It blew my mind when we spoke about it a while ago and I was like, wait. So all of this is, but I want us to cover so that eviction because some people use it as a way to evict people and then some people use it as a way to, I guess, to punish you if you are late.
To get people to pay rent.
To get you to pay quickly, right? Let's talk about lease before sale.
Yes. So if you have a tenant in a piece of property, so your house, and you have this lease agreement, what happens is if you sell your house, it doesn't automatically terminate the lease agreement.
Okay.
So the lease goes to whoever the new owner will be, right? And that is the reason why it is important to have a termination clause. Because imagine you enter into a 5-year lease agreement, there's no termination clause. Your house, right? And the purchaser wants to maybe demolish the house or extend it or whatever, but they can't get out of the lease agreement because there's no termination clause. So in terms of the law, a lease agreement always takes priority over the sale of the unit.
And law and as a tenant allows no termination. Next, you have this amazing landlord, and next thing you know, now all of a sudden you have this terrible landlord, and you can't get out because there's no termination. You're stuck in there for 3 years.
Exactly. And sometimes it's beneficial when you don't have an escalation clause in relation to rent. Where you're in this 5-year lease, 3,000 kula, and you're going to pay 3,000 kula for the next 5 years. But okay, this is an investment property. Maybe I can get 10,000 from it. it then becomes very difficult for them to remove the tenant because there's this lease that is in existence.
In place. Speaking of removing the tenant, we see it happen all the time. You know, but when you want to remove what you ngwana ga kgaitsedi a ke o thoka kwa nnang teng kana o kubile kwa nang tsa nnang teng kopa re mo stele ho weekend a te go tsena kwano o simola sekolo ka Monday di kgang tse di ntseng yalo ke dikgang tse nnang kopana le tsone. What do we say in terms of just doing things the right way, terminating the lease agreement in the right way?
Yes. So a lot of times we tell, I look at these one-room places, they don't have a written lease agreement.
Yeah.
And because there's no written lease agreement, one can say, well, right? But in such a situation, the notice will be tied to the cycle where payment they are in. So if I pay my rent on a monthly basis, then the general rule of thumb is that the notice should also be that 1 month. Yes.
Okay.
So then the general rule of thumb is then the notice period would be that 1 week. 1 week.
Yeah.
So I get rent every month. Then you have to give me that notice or pay me
for the month.
For that month, the notice so that I can go find accommodation somewhere.
So legally, even if let's say it's a written agreement, everything is sharp with, can a landlord say, listen, I want to terminate this thing right now? I get it. As a tenant, if you want to terminate immediately, then you have to cover whatever notice amount. I get it. Yes. So can it be the other way around as well, where the landlord says,
yes, the landlord has to pay you because notice works both ways.
Yes.
I want to move out, I give the landlord notice. If the landlord wants me to move out, on notice. So if the landlord wants me to move out, as notice, also for the notice that they would have given me. Yes.
So when the landlord gives you notice, do they have to give you reasons and explain kind of why bolelo? It's not a request.
Yeah, and that's why the termination clause is important, right?
Yeah.
The termination clause will say this lease agreement can be terminated by giving the other person notice. Unless the lease agreement says you terminate by giving notice with good reason. But a lot of leases don't say that because it creates a lot of problems.
It's ambiguous. What's a good reason?
Exactly. So it's best to just leave it at notice.
Okay.
It's not like with employment law where there has to be substantive and procedural fairness.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Notice is starting now.
And that's it.
And
Okay. Eviction. What's the right process and the procedure for a landlord to evict a tenant? Again, you know what? People who are looking for like the super high level, complicated discussions about property rentals and I have this 5-story building. Yeah. I'm sorry, you guys are gonna have to call Bosa and come and sit down with them. Not that we're here for the everyday man. We're talking about I'm a tenant in this person's house, and this person maybe they're unhappy, I'm not paying rent on time, or they're unhappy, the neighbors are complaining about the noise, complaining to landlord, this guy is always making noise, or you came into the yard one day and you found your house upside down and you're like, no, I want you out of my house. What is the right procedure, to evict someone?
Okay, so there are actually different reasons why a person can be evicted, like you set out, maybe it's lack of payment of rent.
Yeah.
Now, lack of payment of rent has a special procedure, let me call it, that can be used before you go for eviction. Okay. And this is called the landlord's hypothec.
Okay.
Right? And there's an act, I think it's called the Tacit Hypothecs Act, right? Where, how about that landlord's hypothec? If you can claim it, you go to court, and it's usually dealt with as an urgent application.
Oh, okay.
And once you are ordered before the landlord serves you with any court papers. Right? So let's say the landlord will go to court about they want to perfect a landlord's hypothec. Okay. And in the application they explain Yeah, it has to be less than a year.
Okay.
And it's about Hanka seven So give me an order to basically keep Mpo's property a more Jaratenga a mundu. Or Hakia Kotikabata eviction payment they are rent, then I can sell that property to a car.
Yes.
So that the property is attached by the deputy sheriff.
Okay.
So once the order for a landlord's hypothec is given, then the deputy sheriff, oh yeah, thing you
Aditsa.
As soon as they didn't see you, either the deputy sheriff, the tenant or the landlord, then the hypothec falls away. The property has to stay there.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. And then, so how then do we ensure the property? I get the whole idea is to avoid the tenant running away in the middle of the night. So if it's attached, what does that mean? It's written down, noted down, this,
so
and then
it is attached by the deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they
don't. If the tenant adds in the middle of the night, they're actually committing an offense. Yes. It's a completely different situation because they're not supposed to take things they don't want to have under attachment.
Okay.
Because as soon as they remove them, then the landlord's hypothec falls away. But what I've heard of happening, the whole high landlord's hypothec in Siwa, a person will say, okay, right? So sometimes people use the landlord's hypothec as a way to evict people without evicting them. Which is not the right way to use the landlord.
Yeah, no because the reason why I was asking that just now was to understand also, can the sheriff come and just say, all right, you're not allowed in this house, we're gonna lock this house and keep you out until you sort us out, or if you don't sort us out, we're gonna take this property after a certain period of time and go sell it.
Yes. So now the Kaiya key is because a lot of the people that are local and the properties would not have a court order. Right? And even with the landlord's hypothec, it's rare that you find where the order says you can't go into the property.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially because if I'm living somewhere and I live in more personal effects and all those, and there's certain things that cannot be attached in law, like my clothes.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Otherwise, I'm like,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
So, a lot of times, that thing that was not called order. By and it is actually possible for a person to go to court, right? It's called the rule against self-harm. To go to court and say, even though I owe rent, right? That's besides the point. We two seats so tell them and order them to open. And that's an order that can be given. But a lot of times they don't have enough money to even get a lawyer or to go to court and say this person has violated the rule against self-help.
So malao batho ba ithalang ba latela ka di-padlock mo di-property tsa batho.
Exactly.
Even in commercial properties, okay, I know I said you're talking about. I've seen instances where, like in a mall, a shop is locked, it's a property.
Yes.
That's
no,
we can't do that.
No.
Okay.
You might find
I'm trying to open a retail store.
Right? Yeah. Depending on how they did it, or they could have gotten an eviction order. Yes. So what then happens when we move away from the landlord's hypothec, because landlord's hypothec is to secure the property,
yes.
For when you get an order for an amount of money as a rent that should be paid.
Yeah.
After you get the landlord's hypothec, that's when you start Natarawa eviction. So first you ask for a termination of the lease agreement from the court, eviction and payment of a rental, as well as holding over. Right? In one action.
Yes.
So you're saying to the court, this person has breached the lease agreement by doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. you could find or maybe a lease agreement that they need to happen, you give them notice of breach, please remedy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And by this time, or explain how they haven't remedied, and therefore you're asking for the court to terminate the lease agreement. And then number two, on the termination of the lease agreement, you're asking the court to evict this person from the property. Number three, the reason for termination and eviction is lack of payment of rent. But as at the time you bring the matter, let's say 300.
Yeah.
Right? On top of that, you're going to ask for something called holding over damages. Okay. And this is because from the time lease agreement they terminate, holding over because the lease is no longer in existence, but this person is remaining in your property.
Yes. You could be earning an income from there, so now.
Exactly. And we tend to then put in 10% interest there. At the moral interest for violating for the breach, effectively.
Okay. So it sounds like this law is done to protect. Well, it sounds like the tenant is very much protected here.
Yes, you mean the rule against self-help?
Yes.
Yes, it is protected because the view is that the landlord has more, I don't want to say influence, but has more might.
I get you.
Right?
I get you. Yeah, I get you.
They are in a stronger position.
Yes, yes.
And therefore, the tenant is protected from being abused by the landlord because of the strong position that they're coming from.
But now, won't tenants don't tenants abuse this scenario where now I know, fam, you're gonna have to go and deal with the courts. Like for example, I'm renting from an old lady, right? And guys, it's going to be another 6 months. So I can just relax because
Yeah, I completely understand that, right? But how many times is that the scenario?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very rarely.
Is it from what I know, and I stand to be corrected, most of the time it is a landlord when things, then it is usually for a tenant to be abusing an elderly landlord and things like that. Right?
Yeah.
But I stand to be corrected, like I said. The tenant, let's say the landlord, exactly. But the thing is that you find if you do things fast, exclusive 6 months later, this person still hasn't paid me rent for this entire time. Well, by the time this similar, the whole process, hypothetically, eviction and rent,
too much money.
So people tend to wait too long before taking the court process, and that's what then tends to frustrate them.
But you hope and you assume this person will, because you are giving them a little bit of space, they'll meet you halfway.
And how long
they never do. Because also I can imagine just being inside the landlord's head, you're thinking, okay, and now you're thinking, if I do anything legally, if I do anything legally on the 4th month, hey, I have to fight, and so you're just like, you just cross your fingers and hope this job does come in. And yes. And there's no,
yeah. Sometimes the painful thing is, especially for the landlord that's dealing in the same yard as the tenant.
Right? Yeah.
The tenant every weekend,
yeah. Yes.
Job. You're like, what's going on?
So there's this thing. I don't know if it's prevalent in Botswana yet, but I know in South Africa it very much is. I know there's some companies or some entities that do it in Botswana, where before you sign a lease agreement or before you guys agree on renting out the space, we want to see your bank statements, your 3 months bank statements, want to see your pay slip, want to see, is that stuff legal?
Yes, I guess, because I think about Babata Kogana, will you be able to service the lease?
Yeah, ke ga se ganya ga ke bora ke re ke ta kgona.
How's that taking?
Ke ta kgona.
If you want to, then you go somewhere else where they won't ask for any of these things.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I guess growing up, things like when you pay sleep, when you bank statements were super confidential and private, where you feel like, yo, these people, babata di khantsha, babata go ntsola, you know what I mean? And you're wondering, are they they know I need this place, they know I need, their facility. Are they using that to their advantage?
Yeah, no, they want to see whether or not you won't be a problem. It's the same way how you open a loan near a bank or a microlender or whatever. It's a bank statement, it's a 3 to 6 months or whatever. I don't want to pay sleep, an employment confirmation letter, and all these things. Will you be able to meet your end of the bargain when it comes to money?
Okay, all right. Hey, but maybe.
Sometimes, and I see this so many times, right? Where you pay your rent diligently, osana matata, osatseng you pay stress, ebe dilo di senyega mo jarateng, right? And the landlord
Baka, yes. Yeah.
And you're saying, okay, kita bakanya bikin jejak tambaran deh,
Nyanya, sekira.
And then kita take bakanya is like a year down the line.
Yeah. Or you say, I found a plumber. He's very good. Let him come and rock.
Yes.
And then, no, I have my own guy. So that's another thing also. If it's this is a condition that you need to have in the lease. Or if there's any damage to the property, then the landlord has to fix it, and we specify the time period as well. Time frame, or it has to be fixed within.
On the type of damage and what caused it.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And yes, sometimes it will be there in the lease agreement. But the other side is that in the lease agreement it will say you are not allowed to deduct from the rent for any reason. Right? So they will take
pipe tsologa metsi a e leng gore kwena wa ituelela.
What is this madness?
Oh man. Okay. So in my notes here, I see this phrase that I always come across. At the rule against spoliation.
So it's a rule against self-help and it's called spoliation.
Okay.
Yes.
What is that? What did
by coming to lock the door.
The door.
Personally court order.
Uh-huh.
So you can go to court and actually get an order from that
property.
Yes, that property. And so on. And you know what? The sad thing, like I say, is the fact that cannot afford a lawyer enough to say, I don't know to be able to say at least like it's a or whatever.
Yeah, I can imagine. Landlord is out of one malay, Major Tango Malala, go spoliation, go self harm. What is the king? Yes, I know so. Wow, you know, my dear, I won't say, you don't have my dear, I won't say you as a somebody. Oh, man.
And the same thing is, like I said, landlords will let this thing go on forever. Not by the time you're like, okay, how long has it been? We got up to 2 years. That 2 years.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, how does that happen?
Yeah.
How does it happen?
Hey. Okay. So generally, we need to be careful what we agree to,
yes,
and make sure what the terms and conditions di teng mo teng.
yes,
And as tenants, we must remember there's a process and procedure that needs to take place.
both as tenants and landlords.
And landlords, yes. What are the procedures that before we evict? Has mo go tsuga nyalo bo o chaisa o tat o za tiro mo bo ithala go tsentse China bo o be go mataretswa notice mo le ba teng gore bona wa itse re o irile ka le rona re irile ya.
You're reminding me of this one situation where someone I know. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday. And Harikana deputy sheriff you have right? I'm like, okay, what do you mean? About give me 3 months.
Why are you still in there? Clearly you can't.
Okay, yeah, this is rent for 3 months, but I want to court order, I want to letter of execution,
Anything, yeah.
Have they sent you with any court papers? Fortunately, by the time I got there, I know what it's a back and forth. Deputy sheriff, why is you there? Anyway,
you got, yeah.
So I didn't get the deputy sheriff, mama, the lawyer, about it's local. I said, okay, no, that's fine. You could court order.
Hey.
There was no court order.
Yeah.
I said, I understand for the land of court order.
As per the law.
Yes, and I said, you, deputy sheriff, you know how you're an officer of the court. Yes. You are a deputy to a sheriff.
Yes.
So in fact, you pay right?
Yeah.
And they get it. First thing Monday, it's a sheriff. Right? Because I get the registrar of the High Court in a sheriff.
Yes.
That's why these people are
deputy sheriffs, yes.
And then he left.
No way.
I'm telling you, because there was no court order, there was no writ of attachment, nothing.
Oh, one of the way I'm so invested in this story. It's like in the movies, dog. It's like, don't talk to me, talk to my lawyer. And then the lawyer comes and is like, you don't have a warrant for this.
Yeah, fortunately.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
You know what I'm fighting? And I know you have a job to do. But let's make sure as you're doing your job.
Oh man, there's been so many people. There have been so many people who found themselves in that situation where they thought, okay, I guess it's very rare to find someone who still, no, forget me. What about you?
And it's so frustrating because you know this person is right.
100%. But now, so how do deputy sheriffs get paid now? Because I'm curious. Because obviously there's some sort of commission situation, you know. And I'm not. This is not like official business of how they work. I'm just saying in a situation like that, why was this deputy sheriff so adamant without the court order, without the
I think it was more the relationship sort of thing. You know how you know, right? But this happened many years ago.
Yeah.
But I've seen the registrar has actually been quite tough on deputy sheriffs.
Okay.
So they're very reluctant to actually go outside the bounds of their mandate. Because I think a lot of people have reported deputy sheriffs to the sheriff.
Yes.
And therefore the registrar has now started being more stern and firm when it comes to deputy sheriffs and execution of their mandate.
Okay. Nah, cool stuff. I think we will be. Any further information, as I said,
And I'm not saying people should all rent a Bevan Village.
But yeah.
Pay your rent.
Yes. Because now that whole situation, Bonola doesn't work for free. You showing up now is an added cost to you now. So please just pay rent, avoid all the drama.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
How do we get a hold of your office if you wanna, come through, have a conversation?
So they can call the Botswana Thinking Law line.
Okay.
7820145. Hey, the more I say this number, the more
that's why.
Yes. And they can reach us on our various social media platforms. Like I said, we're on YouTube and Spotify where the podcast is.
Yes, ma'am.
And we are on different social media platforms where we publish different types of social content.
Yes.
We talk Botswana law in English and Setswana. And I guess as we saw from the discussion with Rajesh about tax, we are diversifying into different areas.
100%.
And the reason why that's important is because there's a meeting place between law and life, right? And sometimes we need people to come and talk about other aspects of life that are not necessarily law. But where there's that meeting point.
100%. Yes. And tax is definitely that.
Ooh, tax is definitely that.
Yeah, no, Rajesh will definitely be back very, very soon. I just did say, great, but the systems could improve, so let's not worry too much. There's a fantastic seminar that's coming up in April, on the 26th of April.
6 days before after your birthday.
6 days after my birthday. I'm glad you remember that. I love it. So let's talk about that seminar. Yes, and who it's for. How do we become a part of it?
So the seminar is for everyone.
Okay.
And the reason I say everyone is because you are either an employee, an employer, you were an employee or employer, or you are about to become an employee or employer. Yes. So it's for everyone. And this is important because there's somebody that I know. And when they listen to this podcast, they will know I'm talking about them, who signed a contract of employment.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? What? You literally know a lawyer.
Free lawyer services. Yes.
So it's that kind of thing where we will be discussing the different types of contracts of employment, what the rights and duties of employers and employees are. And like I said the last time, we're going to be expanding into the civil service.
Yes.
Because one thing that I've seen recurring, and someone actually told me about it just this afternoon, but apparently some temporary teachers haven't been paid for about 2 months or so.
Since October or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think sometimes people need to know what their rights are and what their duties are and what they can do about it. Because not being paid for 2-3 months and still be expected to show up and meet your end of the contract is something that is important for people to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. We'll keep talking about the seminar as we move closer to it.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, please feel free, get in the comments. Ask us questions, as I saw recently on the employment podcast that we did.
Yeah.
People were saying, because we spoke about annual leave and maternity leave. Maternity leave. So yeah, all of that you can jump on the different platforms and then be a part of the seminar, because there will be a Q&A session.
There will be a Q&A session. I must be honest, our seminars are very intense when it comes to information.
Yes. So be prepared.
So be prepared. Be ready with your questions as well. Yeah. So, and we'll make sure that as time gets closer, we share with you the different areas that we're going to be dealing with in respect of the employment law, because we can't deal with all areas,
all of it.
especially in the 4 to 5 hours that we want to have this.
Yeah. Okay, cool stuff, man.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thanks, B. Please subscribe, comment, like, share it with your people.
Exactly.
We're at episode 6 now. Hey. Karena temu di na solar sa cerita week shooting 25 ya these guys simulang kana share lang kana yan share lang kana yan.
I think in some people's videos and some of the comments would be like, I've been here from the beginning.
Yeah, so we don't have the day one. Please make sure you show and prove right now for your day one. Yeah, we have a giveaway, you know, special little things that we'll do. So make sure you jump on while we're here. Thanks, B.
Thank you so much, Carlos.
See you next week.
It's always a pleasure to have you. Catch the Botswana Thinking Law podcast on YouTube and Spotify, and catch Botswana Thinking Law on various social media platforms, Facebook, X, TikTok, and so on, where we talk about Botswana law in English and Setswana.